Dear learners, my name is Dr. Rajeev Kumar Mishra and I am working as an associate professor in one of the AKTU affiliated engineering colleges. AKTU means Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Technical University, Lucknow. Dear learners, in the previous lecture we have discussed that drying of food is a requirement and is very necessary process for preserving our food for longer duration. If you want to preserve our food, then your food need to be dried and it must be moisture free at some extent. High moisture content is one of the main reason for the spoilage of food, and food needs to be dried. To solve this problem and to overcome this problem of the spoilage of the food, various drying techniques have been evolved. In the present lecture, in this module, we are going to discuss one of the very important drying technique known as open sun drying. As the term suggests, the sun will be there and your material will be directly exposed to the sun and your material gets dried. Now, to understand this technique, I have prepared a presentation with the following content. First, I will briefly introduce the principle behind the sun drying, then what are the science involved in the open sun drying, then the drying mechanism, then how this open sun drying takes place, then what are the various options of the sun drying. We will try to discuss various options. Then how to improve sun drying, because sun drying is we see in the coming sections that sun drying is a very slow process and also your food gets contaminated, and we can improve this sun drying by using some techniques. We will discuss those techniques, how to improve the sun drying. Then additional measures to maintain optimum quality during the sun drying. What are the additional measures need to be maintained during the sun drying, open sun drying. Then advantages and disadvantages of open sun drying. We will discuss these content in this module. Drying of a product is nothing but the removal of moisture from the product. Drying helps in reducing the moisture content of a product to a level below which spoilage of food does not occur. And again I am saying to you that moisture content below which the spoilage of food does not occur vary from material to material, from food to food. And food can be stored for definite time if you dry the food. During drying, the product also undergo to physical and chemical changes which may or may not be desirable depending on the properties required for the product output. But these physical changes will be there and we need to control these changes, because most of the physical and chemical changes are undesirable changes which you don't want in the product output. The physical changes may be in the form of shrinkage, puffing, etc., and the chemical changes may result in color, odor, taste, etc. You can very easily observe that if you put some crop in the open sun drying, then maybe after 2-3 days, if you continuously putting your crop in the open sun, then the color and odor may change of that crop. Then depending on how the solar energy is collected and utilized to dry product, various drying modes are there: open sun drying, direct mode drying and indirect mode drying. In this particular module, we will discuss the open sun drying in detail. Open sun drying has been the age-old process. It is not new process. People are using from very long time this open sun drying. So open sun drying has been the age-old process of drying agriculture products and various food items. It usually requires a safe place to put and rather spread the product to be dried. The product to be dried is spread over a surface in the form of very thin layer. The sun heats up the product and the surrounding air and the product gets dried. All the agriculture products when harvested contain large amount of moisture which results in spoilage during the storage. It is well known fact that agriculture products which with the high moisture content are prone to fungal growth, damage by insects, pests, etc. In order to overcome these problems, various drying techniques have been developed. Drying the food product under natural and sunny condition is called the sun drying. You all must have seen this open sun drying technique somewhere at your, especially in the rural areas. When people wants to dry their wheat, then they use this open sun drying technique. So most of you have seen somewhere this open sun drying technique. No energy is required for the drying process. To practice sun drying of foods, hot days are desirable with minimum temperature of 35 with low humidity. Even people used to dry their crops in the winter also, but at that time, the drying rate will be slower and your food needs some more time to dry. That is, the drying time will be higher. So the hot days are desirable with a minimum temperature of 35 degrees Celsius with low humidity. As low the humidity will there, the drying time will be lower. The poor quality produce is avoided for natural drying to achieve the good quality drying products. We use them fresh foods, fresh crops to dry in the open sun drying technique. The lower limit of moisture content by this method is approximately 15%. We generally cannot go beyond this 15% of the humidity. Open sun drying is a traditional drying method for reducing the moisture content of agriculture products by spreading the grains under the sun. The solar radiation heats up the product as well as the surrounding air and thus increasing the rate of water evaporation from the product, and your products gets dried. Then what are the science behind this open sun drying? Open sun drying is the simplest way of drying agriculture products, fruits, vegetables, food grains, fish, herbs, milk products, etc. The product to be dried is spread on an open surface in thin layer and directly exposed to the solar radiation. A part of the solar radiation is reflected back while remaining part is absorbed by the surface of the product. The absorbed radiation is converted into the thermal energy and the temperature of the products starts increasing. This leads to a loss of thermal energy in the form of long wave radiation from the surface of the products to the ambient air through the moist air. Simultaneously, there is a convective heat loss due to blowing wind over the product. These results in evaporation of moisture and its loss to surrounding atmosphere, and thus your products gets dried. The same has been represented here in this diagram. You can see the sun radiation coming from the sun falls on your product to be dried. Some part gets reflected and the heat loss to the atmosphere in the form of long wave radiation. Some part gets absorbed by the material and the temperature of your crop increases and evaporation takes place from the surface of your material and your product gets dried. So this is actually the open sun drying, where your food product is directly exposed to the sun radiation. So when this process is going on, a part of thermal energy is absorbed by the products and is conducted into the interior of the product, because you know that evaporation always takes place from the surface, and during this process a part of thermal energy which is absorbed by the product and is conducted into the interior of the product. The temperature of water present inside the product rises and results in the formation of water vapor inside the products. These water vapor diffuse towards the surface of the products and finally lost in the atmosphere. The drying rate in the initial stages is fast because of the availability of moisture at the surface of the product. Initially, the more moisture will be there on the surface, and the drying rate in the initial state is fast because the moisture is available on the surface of the product. Thereafter, drying depends upon the rate at which the moisture present within the product moves towards the surface, because as the temperature increases, the moisture inside the crop used to come on the surface of the product, and this also depends on the type of the product to be dried. Again I am saying it to you that the material property also is a deciding factor in the drying rate and the time taken for the complete drying of the product. The simple equipments are required such as knives, peelers, trays, etc. Plastic sheet are also used to spread the material in the form of very thin layers. Process consists of washing, peeling and preparation of fruits or vegetables. Fruits are generally sulfured, whereas vegetables are blanched before drying to prevent enzymatic browning. Fruits are seldom blanched. Fruits are considered to be dry when they show no signs of moisture or stickiness when held firmly in the hand. Vegetables are considered to be dry when it becomes brittle. At this stage, they should be removed from the dehydrator. The residual moisture in the vegetables should not be more than 6 to 8%, and in the fruits it should not be more than 10 to 20%. Dried fruits can be used as such after soaking, while dried vegetables usually soaked in water overnight and then cooked. Then we will try to understand what are the mechanisms taking place inside the food material which are under drying process. In drying process, when the heat is supplied to the wet material by any means, its out surface becomes hot and heat further diffuses into the material generally through conduction. So basically two heat transfer mechanism, that is convection and conduction, continuously taking place inside the material. And again I am just reminding it to you, it is not a simple process. It is a complicated, complex process, and different types of heat and mass transfer mechanisms are continuously taking place inside the material during the whole drying process. The moisture is transported from inner portion to the outer surface of material by various diffusion processes, that is liquid diffusion, vapor diffusion, etc. The moisture available at the outer surface of the material is evaporated and taken away through natural or forced convection. For forced convection, you know that we need to forcefully blow the air on the top surface of the material for the forced convection. When solar energy falls on the surface, a part of thermal energy is absorbed by the products and is conducted into the interior of the product. The temperature of water present inside the products rises, and as a result of this rise of the temperature of the food product, the formation of water vapor inside the product takes place. These water vapor diffuse toward the surface of the products and finally lost in the atmosphere. The whole process, the whole mechanism has been represented with the help of this diagram. Then there are various options for the sun drying to make it more effective, and one is the matte drying. In matte drying, the products which need to be dried, your product may be wheat, crops, some food crops, some agriculture residues, some fishes, milk products. These products which need to be dried are placed on some mats, nets or plastic sheets, which are also known as canvas, to dry. And there are some advantages and disadvantages of this matte drying technique. The advantages are, it is the most hygienic sun drying practice because grains become less contaminated with stones and other dirts. We will see in the next section. Then in a pavement drying, where we use a pavement to draw the food products, and stones and dirts generally contaminate your products. But this matte drying technology is most hygienic technology. It also allows easy collection in the case of rainfall. Suppose we are drying our food, we are drying our crop on the mats, so we can easily fold this mat when rainfall is there. So handling is easy. Disadvantage of the nets, since in this drying we can use nets also. So if you are using nets, to dry our food products, then the chances of re-wetting up the bottom from the soil moisture is also possible, and because we can damage our products. Or if you from the top surface food is drying, but from the bottom some soil moisture is absorbed by the food products, then the drying time will be more in this case, and it is one of the very noticeable disadvantage of this mud drying technique. Then another is the pavement drying. The farmers, grain collectors, traders and millers use drying pavements. Drying pavements are basically the stone or brick structure on which we use to dry our products. These pavements are specially constructed for drying, and these are multi-purpose also. We can use the basketball court or badminton court for this pavement drying technology as the pavement. So later on we can use this platform for the multi-purpose applications. Like in the daytime we can dry our crops, and in the night time maybe we can use this the same place as the basketball court or the badminton court. This method can dry a high capacity of grains and can be partially mechanized by using field tractors. The same has been represented in these two figures, and the advantages of this pavement dryings are the high capacity. So we can use the high capacity crops to dry with the help of this pavement drying, and economics of scale, and can be partially mechanized, and if it can be partially mechanized, as a result this drying technique may be more faster in comparison to the mud drying. But the disadvantages are also there, like capital requirement for the pavements. We need to construct it, and we have to invest some money for the construction of these pavements, and pollution with stone and dirt. That is, if we dry our crop or food on this pavement, then there is a chance of contamination of your food products with stones and dirts. Now, how to improve these sun drying techniques? If sun is drying is managed properly, it can be produced high quality grains, but we have to improve, we have to manage it somehow to get the high quality grains. To improve sun drying, we need to spread the grains in the thin layer of ideally 2 to 4 centimeter. The very thin layer tend to heat up very quickly with a negative effect on head rise recovery. If layers are too thick, a large moisture gradient develops with dry grains on the top and wet grains on the bottom, which reabsorb the moisture after mixing, because moisture is still there inside your material. If your layer is very thick, then moisture will be there, and after mixing there is a reabsorption of the moisture, resulting in cracked grains. Turn or stir the grain over every 30 minutes. During good weather conditions, mixing or turning the grains is the most important activity for maintaining good quality. Again I am saying it's not a very new exercise. The people are using this practice from very long time. The variation in the moisture content within the grain causes re-wetting and subsequent cracking of dried grains. Then some of the additional measures to maintain optimum quality during the sun dryings. On hot days, grain temperature can raise above 50 to 60 degrees Celsius. If this is the case, cover the grain at midday to prevent overheating of the grains, because overheating means the grain may lose their taste, lose their odor, lose their color also. So to avoid overheating in the peak time when the temperature is very high, we need to cover the grain to prevent overheating. Cover the grain immediately if it starts raining. Otherwise, once rain falls on the grains, then it will again absorb the moisture from the rain, and we need to dry it again. So re-wetting of grain results in the fissured grains and high grain breaking during the milling. Prevent contamination of grains with other material and keep animals off the grains. Monitor grain moisture content and grain temperature. So, the advantages and disadvantages of this open sun drying technique we need to discuss, because every technology is not perfect. Some advantages will be there, some disadvantages will be there, but we need to manage these two advantages and disadvantages at some level. Open sun drying has been the age-old process of drying agriculture products and various food items. Drying in the sun is very economical. It's a very economical process. We no need to spend any money if you want to dry your crop in the open sun. So, drying in sun is the very economical, as it simply requires the products to be spread on a suitable surface and then left for drying to the desired extent. So, the advantages of this open sun drying are, it is the most common drying method in Asia because of its low cost compared to mechanical drying. It requires little investment and is environmentally friendly, since it uses the sun as the heat source and therefore does not produce carbon dioxide. Unlike the electrical drying where coal is burning there, so that because of the burning of the coal, some carbon dioxide goes to the environment and it will not be the environmental friendly. And disadvantages are also there for this open sun drying. That open sun drying requires presence of somebody at the site throughout the drying period, so that the products could be protected from birds, animals and adverse weather conditions. Like if rain is there, then someone should be there to protect the products. The resulting drying products are not of high quality because of dust and other sediments present in the atmosphere, etc. The products are usually unhygienic. Sun drying tends to labor intensive and has limited capacity. Temperature control is also difficult in this method and the product can easily to overheat, causing cracks grains, which leads to low milling quality. It is also not possible to open sun dry at night and during the rain. So, these are some of the disadvantages of this, but one advantage that is very economical and very easy to handle is the main advantage of this open sun drying, and people are using this open sun drying very frequently. Then in this module we have discussed the solar drying in the practice since the ancient time for preservation of food and agriculture crops. This was done particularly by open sun drying under sky conditions. This process has several demerits like spoilage of product due to adverse climatic conditions like rain, wind, moist, dust, loss of material due to bird and animals, deterioration of the material by decomposition, insects and fungal growth. Also, the process is highly labor intensive, time consuming and require large area, because we need to spread your food and agriculture residues in the form of very thin layer, so we need some large area. Open sun drying is a traditional practice for many vegetables, fruits and fishes. Dehydrated food stuff has higher shelf life, making it available throughout the year. The dehydrated fruits and vegetables have much smaller weight and hence are easy to transport from one place to another place. They cater to the needs to defend establishment, adventure, expeditions, etc. These hydrated products can be used in various preparations even in off season. Vegetables, fruits and fishes dried by traditional open sun air is time consuming and less hygienic process. Farmers in India have normally very small land holdings and most of them are not well educated. These farmers have to face glut of market uncertainties, as most of the farm producers are perishable. A farmer can do nothing. If rates in the market falls, processing of perishable farm produce to process food can be very good alternative for such farmers, where by shelf life of the product is increased. Farmers can earn some extra money for value addition to the product. Solar drying is a traditional practice for few varieties of farm produce and fishes. Development of new solar gadgets like solar concentrator and ovens open up many adventures for food processing. So in this section we have discussed some introduction about the open sun drying, then what are the mechanism behind the open sun drying and how this open sun drying takes place. Then we explored some options for the sun drying like mat drying and pavement drying, and we have gone through the various advantages and disadvantages of this drying. And then we saw how to improve the sun drying, one by spreading the grain in the thin layer over a very large area and turn or stir the grain for every 30 minutes. And we have noticed some additional measures to maintain optimum quality during the sun drying. Then we have seen the advantages and disadvantages of this open sun drying.